We still have to wait a few minutes. There is a mess up at the security desk. Probably the attendants of the meeting have been sort of looked like a potential wrongdoers or whatever. No, but we have to bear with it. That's for sure. So a few minutes and we start. Okay, dear panelists, dear guests, I'd like to welcome you at the high-level debate on financial education of children that I'm hosting together with the Czepczyński Family Foundation. We are organizing it as a part of the OECD Global Money Week, which every year raises consciousness about the fact how important it is that every person from an early age on gains necessary financial knowledge so that he or she is more financially aware. The issue is very important. I wouldn't say that I was surprised, but the resonance that we got from everybody that we invited was immense. So all of us, we know how important it is to educate people from the early age on economic issues, on financial issues. Before I give the floor to Beata Stelmach, let me remind myself and about an episode that I went through about 10 years ago. I was there at that time central bank governor, and I was invited by the biggest School of Economics in Warsaw to speak to children. Well, children from 10 to 13. So Children Academy of Economics, it was called. Well, of course, this was a very difficult task for me to convey messages that would be understood by children of 12. But, well, I talked like 10 minutes, and then there was a sort of tens of hens-raised kids wanted to ask me questions. But you know, what was the main question that they asked me? Well, my parents have taken a credit and they are in trouble. How is it possible to avoid repaying credit? Well, so this was the state of consciousness, of financial and economic consciousness of those young kids. It's much better now, but still we have a lot to do from the early age, and obviously in high schools. In fact, Poland is treating seriously this issue, and a discipline, a subject, economics or entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is one of the subjects to be chosen at the Matura, at the Abitur. So maybe we are moving forward, but let's try to look at the best practices and what we are doing in different countries, in different organizations here in Europe. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to Beata Stelmach, who is advisor to the board of Czepczyński Family Foundation and former Undersecretary of State at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So you see, well, big guns are taking part in this effort. Beata.
Thank you so much, Professor, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Czepczyński Family Foundation, I would like to welcome everybody. And first of all, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And Professor, thank you so much for hosting this debate.
Well, I'm because MEP, not a professor.
First of all, you know, he is an icon in Poland in the financial sector. So, Professor, thank you for hosting this debate, because we all understand how important it is to raise our children, our generation, not to ask a question how to avoid repayment the credit, or how to take the responsibility for your financial decisions. But Professor, thank you also for and pass our thanks to your team for supporting, preparing this organizationally, this debate, because, you know, I'm so happy seeing so many people gathered around this table, and so distinguished guests, panelists, experts, friends. Let me say a few words about the foundation. Czepczyński Family Foundation's main goal, aim, is to offer children innovative program to share the knowledge among the youngest. You mentioned, Professor, you met the elder people raising silly questions. But maybe if we invested in a smaller generation, and the program is dedicated to the group of between 5 and 10 years old, maybe the elder wouldn't ask such questions. So this program is also to support the system, because there are so many projects, programs dedicated to teenagers, but there are none dedicated to the smallest, to the youngest children. let me tell you that this program in Poland is already present in more than 1,200 schools and kindergartens. So also 5-year-old children start learning that the money is not taken from the wall, but you have to work to get this money. We translated this program into 5 languages. So far, there are 3 countries, Italy, Spain, and Germany, where this program was also introduced to schools. And I will be more than happy to talk after this debate with those who would like to be engaged. Maybe we could expand to other markets, other countries in Europe as well. But taking this opportunity, let me also thank Madam Commissioner McGuinness for taking this leadership to lead and to take care of education programs in different on different levels at schools and universities. So concluding, we are here because of Global Money Week. Foundation is taking part in this event for the 2nd time, and I'm so happy that we were able to gather around this table such distinguished representatives from such organizations like Commission, OECD, banking sectors, education sectors, regional governor. So I wish you a fruitful debate. We expect a lot of questions, but we are happy and ready to share our experience in sharing the education among the youngest people, financial education.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's now turn to opening statements, setting the scene. And we have 20 minutes for 3 interventions. We start with Patricia Raley, Head of Cabinet of Merit McGuinness. A big thank you for Commissioner to show interest in our meeting. Then it's a statement by Natalie Berger, Director for Support to Member State Reforms, DG Reform, European Commission. And then statement by Carmine Di Noia, Director for Financial and Enterprise Affairs, OECD. We start with Patricia.
Thank you very much, MEP Belka, Professor, colleagues, Stanovi, Peinstful. I'm really delighted to join you here today for this event to mark Global Money Week. And as I think you know, Commissioner McGuinness, this is a very important subject for her. She would really love to have been here this morning. Unfortunately, she's otherwise engaged at the Commission's weekly college meeting. So that's a set in stone meeting, so she couldn't join. But she has asked me to say a few words on her behalf, which I'm very happy to do. Financial literacy is a really important life skill that helps to build financial resilience and increase the financial well-being of both individuals and households. It lays the foundations for strong habits and can help avoid many of the mistakes that lead to financial struggles and the parents of those people who couldn't pay their debts. And those things also have knock-on effects consequently in life. And it's not a theoretical point. Teenagers and younger children who learn how to manage their money very early on are often much better equipped for life, not just financially, but more broadly. There are well-established links between financial literacy and not just better lifestyles, but better physical and mental health also. But of course, financial literacy is a long-term learning process. It's not something that we learn as adults, or should at least. That learning needs to start at an early age, and teachers and parents play a very key role. Digital technologies, we all know, have opened the door to many new products and services and ways of accessing them. I think probably most of us in this room have our bank accounts on apps, and we have Revolut and Wise and goodness knows what else. So of course this means easier access, and sometimes cheaper products, but it's not without risks. And with those risks come vulnerabilities. Some people are vulnerable to accessing products that maybe aren't suited to their needs. And it's not that hard to fall for scams and frauds. People I know myself who are very smart and very educated have fallen for fraud. So it's not difficult. So the rapid digitalization of finance means that financial literacy is more important than ever. Many people, and especially young people, are not always aware of the risks and the dangers of different types of assets, like crypto assets, or using different tools and apps. A Eurobarometer that we published last October showed that young people are slightly less confident than older people when it comes to managing their personal finances. Now, I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes confidence it disguises ignorance. So maybe being a little wary is not necessarily a bad thing. And at the same time, young people are more attracted to crypto assets. They have more trust in social media than maybe older people like me as a source of information on financial matters. And they feel more secure in making financial transactions via the web or apps. But again, I think that that varies a lot. I'm very comfortable making transactions using apps, maybe less so buying cryptocurrencies online. Recent studies in the US show that the increasing role of social media and influencers in providing financial advice, especially among young people. That study in the US tells us that more than 50% of Gen Z, so people under 25 now, are getting financial advice from TikTok and Instagram. And these numbers are increasing rapidly. And in the country I know best, which you probably have guessed from my accent, is Ireland. A recent study came up with some interesting results in this area. Over 1/3 of 13 to 18-year-olds surveyed feel that they're not knowledgeable about managing money, and almost half of them worry about their ability to manage money. In addition to many of the money influencers that I mentioned, the social media people, or finfluencers, as I've seen them described, they're not licensed financial advisors. A lot of them are, pop stars or whatever. So they mightn't even be aware of the laws and requirements that actually apply to them when they're giving financial advice. And 25% of the young people in that Irish study that I mentioned say that they learn about their finances online, and that includes things like TikTok and Instagram. And while many millennials and Gen Zers are using social media for information about investment rather than relying on more traditional sources of advice, family and friends still have the most influence on young people's financial decisions. 88% of young people in that study I mentioned get their advice from parents, 57% from teachers, and around 40% from grandparents. So I think that's a reminder to us in our daily lives that when we're in conversation, particularly with young people, we need to talk about money. Commissioner McGuinness says this all the time. We need to talk about money. It's sometimes almost, I don't know whether it's the same in every member state, but certainly the one I know best, people don't talk about money. It's almost a little bit embarrassing. I mean, they'll talk about how much they paid for their house maybe, but they won't talk about their investments or their savings or the returns they're getting or their worries about money. So these conversations can have a really positive effect on young people's financial well-being. The Commissioner McGuinness and our colleagues in DG FISMA take financial education and financial literacy really very seriously. Last year, together with the OECD, and we will hear from the OECD later, we published a financial competence framework for adults. And we're currently working together with the OECD and member states on a financial competence framework for children and youth. Our goal is that member states and educational institutions, industry and individuals will take up these frameworks and use them to develop public policy and financial literacy programs and educational materials, though I can't imagine anybody producing anything more high quality than what I see this morning. It's really, really impressive. Today, our levels of financial literacy in the EU are too low. Up to now, the most comprehensive measure of financial literacy in the EU is the Standards & Poor Global Financial Literacy Survey, which was carried out 9 years ago. And at that time, financial literacy levels in Europe ranged from highs of 71% in some member states and Scandinavian countries to lows of 22% in parts of Central and Eastern Europe. And again, in the member state I know best, more recent work by one of the banks suggests that we're somewhere in the middle at about 54%. It's just not enough, just not good enough. And it's even worse if you're a woman or if you belong to a vulnerable group. In 2020, the OECD International Network on Financial Education survey of adult financial literacy confirmed this overall message in an international study, but that only covered 14 of the EU member states, and 6 of those 14 participating member states had a lower than average OECD financial literacy score. So that's why I'm very pleased to say that we are currently working on a Eurobarometer to gather financial data or data on financial literacy levels across all EU member states. This will be the first time we have such data covering all of the EU, and I think this is the first time it's been mentioned in public. So that's something for the press release maybe later. Increasing financial literacy is not an easy task, and it requires really concerted efforts from all sides. Several member states have put in place national strategies for financial education, and some member states have made financial literacy a compulsory subject in schools. And there are also very many financial education initiatives in the private sector and among NGOs. And I will reiterate, the Commissioner and DG FISMA are really aware of the wonderful work done by the Chimczynski Family Foundation. And I can't say how impressed I am with what I've seen this morning in terms of the publications. We're very aware in the Commission that financial education, and indeed education generally, is a member state competence. But what we can do is help to coordinate and supplement this work and support it. Commissioner McGuinness has made financial literacy and education a priority for her mandate. So work has been done during that mandate so far, and it continues. The Commission and OECD Financial Competence Framework for Adults aims to create a shared understanding of financial competences for adults across the EU. It's really comprehensive and focuses mostly on digitalisation and sustainable finance. It introduces digital finance competences on financial products and services, crypto assets, robo-advice, and online scams and fraud, as I mentioned earlier. And where the framework has to work for each member state and, suit it individually, because the member states are very diverse, as we know. And after all, they're the ones actually using the framework. So when we developed it, we worked very closely with the member states. And already several member states have indicated that they're planning to incorporate the framework into their national literacy and financial literacy strategies. We're also looking at addressing financial literacy in the upcoming retail investment strategy, which I'm sure Mr. Belka has heard a little bit about already, is causing a bit of a stir for other reasons. But this is an important pillar of the retail investment strategy that we're working on. And we're looking in particular at whether it's feasible to introduce a requirement in sectoral legislation to ensure that member states promote financial education for consumers. What's very clear to us is that financial education needs to go hand in hand with strong consumer protection measures and fair advice, as well as good regulatory measures for financial markets. So I want to return briefly to the framework we're currently developing for children and youth. It follows closely the structure of the adult framework, but it's tailored for younger audiences, and the competences will be split between 3 different age groups. So I think, as Beata mentioned, very young children, we can start with very young children, and if we lay those foundations early, it's very positive. What's new compared to the framework for adults is that we're consulting with experts from national ministries of education, as well as the finance and economy ministries. And I'd like to thank the experts from those national competent authorities who are here today for their really valuable input. Returning to the Irish research I cited, there was huge support for financial literacy programmes in schools, with about 95% of people in favour of having financial literacy taught in schools, and only a quarter of people thought that that was done well enough at the moment. And similarly, in a focus group with teachers in the same study, they readily acknowledged a lack of financial literacy among primary and secondary school students and a lack of structure and learning content at the moment. So there's definitely an appetite for greater focus on financial well-being. We will complete our joint work with the OECD this autumn, and we hope that the framework will be used widely by the public and private actors and perhaps by schools, helping them to develop activities and materials that will nurture an understanding of money and the importance of financial education amongst children and teenagers. So thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to hearing the inputs from other colleagues.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Nathalie Berger.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dear Mr. Belka, dear Mrs. Delmas, dear Patricia, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to exchange with you today and to speak to you about the work that in DG Reform we are doing to support concretely the member states in their efforts to promote financial literacy. This is really a key topic in the Commission, and Patricia mentioned all the work that DG FISMA is doing under the lead of Commissioner McGuinness. It is a key topic for us in DG Reform under the lead of Commissioner Ferreira. We want really to be able to drive meaningful, impactful reforms on the ground for the benefit of everyone, be there in the capital cities, be there in the regions. And we see this, of course, as also a building element in the context of the cohesion and territorial policy. As we all know it, low levels of financial literacy can have very negative consequences, not only for those individuals that have badly invested, but also for the entire society and the economy. And I don't need to come back to the origins of the great financial crisis and the bubble. I mean, all the loans that could not be reimbursed in the US. One of the emerging trends that we see in the financial sector is the increased digitalization. And this results in a widespread availability of easy to access financial products. This in turn leads to an increased use of digital means for payments and for investments. And another linked trend witnesses in the member states is the appearance of the new financial investors. These financial investors are typically younger, tech savvy, self-directed, sometimes influenced, as Patricia said it, by influencers who may be, with due respect, Kim Kardashian, but may not be fully understanding the potential risks and the returns of the investment products. So there can be an imbalance in there, in the sense that you can have an easy access to the financial products, but that does not necessarily mean that such products are simple or come with a low level of risk. Thus, it is essential, I mean, beyond all the work that is doing on the framing and the regulation of the markets and the products, it is essential to offer to the citizens the knowledge and the skills to navigate through these innovations and enable them to make sound financial decisions throughout their lifetime. The new Capital Markets Union Action Plan reaffirms the role of financial literacy as a central pillar. And as mentioned by Patricia, the European Commission, DG FISMA, and the OECD have been working together to develop some joint financial competence frameworks for both young people and adults to provide the member states with a solid basis to develop their initiatives. At DG reforms level, we are working directly with the member states. In other words, we support national reforms initiatives consistent with the European priorities through our technical support instrument. This is a program of the European Union which is aimed at improving the capacity, the administrative capacity of the member states to design, develop, and implement sustainable, inclusive, growth-enhancing reforms. Today, we will hear about the best practices in financial literacy initiatives from Portugal and from Poland. These are initiatives that we are supporting with the technical cooperation of our colleagues from the OECD. But these are not the only member states that we are supporting in the area of financial literacy. DG Reform works with several member states across the financial literacy projects, targeting SMEs, people, and investors, including Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Cyprus, the Czech Republic, France, Greece, and Italy. In Italy, we have been producing some amusing videos which look a bit like a series. They are actually a series, and it's a story about a young woman and the father and the investor. It's very, very easy to follow. It's quite amusing, very easy to understand, and it has a fabulous impact. It really yields concrete results on investors, on the people, because it's not boring, you know, it's just funny. And all these projects address different aspects of financial literacy. I can give some other examples. We help member states in developing their national financial literacy strategy, which involves analyzing the ongoing financial literacy activities, performing large-scale consultations and surveys on the knowledge of different population segments, to then design a high-level roadmap. We also support initiatives targeting SMEs in order to raise their awareness of the financial possibilities offered by capital markets, so to nurture the development of capital markets union. And for investors, we supported the authorities in the analysis of market practices of financial products to identify risks of mis-selling towards the elderly population, and we're also developing communication tools for young investors. Indeed, you need to have different practices, you need to have different instruments, depending on what is the segment of the population that you're targeting. You're not going to speak the same language when you speak to very young people, very young investors, or if you want to target the old population. And this is extremely important. So I mentioned that we have been developing some communication tools on financial literacy, divulgated through the media, adapted to the different phases of life, and tailored, of course, to the different target groups. Such reforms are absolutely crucial to ensure that starting from the young age, citizens across Europe have the knowledge and the skills necessary to make well-informed choices that will affect the financial well-being in the future. And I just think of, for example, the topic of preparing for the pensions. A few years ago, in another capacity, I had developed the personal pension, the Pan-European Personal Pension Plan, the PEP, which is a major part of the Capital Markets Union. So we were striving to incentivize people to develop their personal savings plans for the future. For people to be interested and for people to join such type of initiative, they need to benefit from the basics of financial literacy. And of course, a number of these financial literacy projects are implemented with the OECD, leveraging on their extensive experience and expertise in this field. And the partnership with the OECD is absolutely essential to ensure that our projects align with the international best practices and standards, and to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and good practices among the EU member states and beyond. So I would like to thank you very much thank the colleagues from the OECD for the excellent cooperation. In conclusion, let me emphasize that the effort to promote financial literacy is crucial for the well-being of the EU citizens and the economic prosperity of our countries, and that the European Commission stands beside the member states in their efforts in this direction, that we are delighted to activate our technical support instrument to support the reforms in that regard. By providing financial and digital literacy education to young people, we can empower them to take informed decisions, protect themselves from financial fraud and online scams, and also contribute to a more sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it's turn for the OECD. Carmina Di Noia.
Dzień dobry. Distinguished guests, dear panelists, dear participants. Happy Global Money Week, the 2023 edition. Distinguished guests, dear panelists, dear
Okay, then. Wow. Everything got spoiled. Okay. Can we start with Carmino or turn to best practices, showcasing best practice, and then we turn to you? Okay, so best practice from Poland, Paulina Stochniałek, and best practice from Portugal, Maria Lucia Leitão. Okay, first we turn to Paulina Stochniałek,
okay,
together with Margareta Przybyła.
Yes. Okay. 1, 2, 3 is okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you very much that you are here. It's a pleasure to be with you. In our local government in Wielkopolska region, I'm responsible for, oh, great. for education, also healthcare and civic, social and civic things, but education is the most important thing. I know that. And in Poland, after 8 years of current government and social transfer for unemployed people, we are starting to observe the presence of children at school who have never seen their parents working. They are not poor, really. For some group, often it's a way of life. And often these families get more money from social welfare than the social workers earn. And it's really sad. I saw that, really. Children, not only from such families, don't know the value of work and the value of money. In the average family, parents don't talk about the household budget with small children. Nothing about money. Mr. Patricia told that. Pocket money is not common practice in primary school children. About issue of state economy, inflation, reason and effects, of course, state budget, also many adults know nothing in Poland. We know that. As a regional government, we don't run primary or even secondary schools, but we have a big impact on schools of all levels through our teachers' training centers. And we use that influence as much as we can. It's true that economic education is included in the basic education program in Poland, but it's also true, and it's said, that teachers don't have good tools, don't have good books, don't know how to explain to children what basic economy is. And most often, economic education comes down to simply mathematical operation. It's not the point. That's why I decided and quickly convinced my colleagues from the board that we need to implement an economic education project for children in grade 1st to 3rd, so between 6 to 8 years old. It's easier for us because for several years we have been running the Digital School of Wielkopolska 2020 project, of course from European Union funds. So we have possibility and we can expand our activity. This new project is directed to 591 primary schools, 1st to 3rd class. It's almost 35% of primary schools in Wielkopolska region. Each school will be equipped with one education kit consist on children's books, teaching materials, and of course workshops for teachers, and is really important thing. Books will cover thematic issues such as definition and source of money, household budget, expenses in the household budget, of course, needs and wants, because it's a different. Managing money, volunteering, really important things. Treats coming from advertising. Yeah, you told us about TikTok, about Instagram and all these things. Retirement, unemployment, entrepreneurship, really important. Especially for us in Wielkopolska region, taxes, poverty and wealth, etc., etc. And these issues must be logically and comprehensively presented, adapted to the cognitive abilities of 6-8 years old children. Currently, we are conducting and we finish a tender procedure and we start in the next week. Details about how these topics could be presented in book will give you Margareta in a moment. Let me just add finally that in Wielkopolska region, we strongly believe in organic work, and I strongly believe on it, really. We have good historical experience in that. I'm sure that we can prepare teachers to teach the youngest pupils basic of economics. And for these children, this knowledge will be really important things for their future life. Margareta, talk about details.
Yes. Thank you very much. I am honored to welcome you here on behalf of the Czepczyński Family Foundation. Our foundation from Poland, our mission is to support the education system and to develop innovative education projects. And so far, we have developed 2 education projects. This is the financial education, ABC of economics, but we also have developed an inclusive education project called ABC of empathy. And you can see the examples of our materials here. I'm here today to present to you in a bit more details the ABC of economics projects, but let me start maybe with elaborating a bit on what Mrs. Stochniałek said, that there is, and I think also previous speakers, that there is indeed a great need for financial education of children, that there is a niche. In Poland, some elements of financial or economic concepts are being introduced at schools, but the smallest are being neglected. So this is why our founder, Artur Czepczyński, when he decided to develop an financial education program, he decided to really address, target the youngest one, because we really believe that with financial education, we should start from an early age, because this is the only way to raise citizens that will be able to ask the right questions, that will be able to take the right decisions, that will be financially literate and financially resilient. Indeed, the project, the ABC of economics, is addressed at children from 5 till 10 years. It is being implemented already in 102,000 schools and kindergarten in Poland, as my colleague Beata has said. So it is very well evaluated. And the feedback we are receiving from teachers, from parents, and from children is very positive. And very often when presenting this program, we are being asked, so what is so unique? What is so special about this program that teachers want to use it? Because we all know teachers don't have time. They don't have time to look for materials. They don't have time to develop. So they need instruments. They need knowledge. So we believe there are really 3 elements of this project that make it, let's call it, teachers and children friendly. First of all, this project is complex. So it is based on a book that you can see here also in the room. The book is called ABC of Economics, First Steps in the World of Finance. There are 12 chapters. They cover really basic economic notions, such as what is money, where does the money come from, what is a price, what is an advertisement, why do we have to save, what is a home budget. But we also cover like social notions. What does it mean to be poor or rich? Because very often children are talking about this at school. Or what does it mean to be a volunteer? Together with the book, we have developed materials for teachers. So 12 chapters, we have developed 12 lesson scenarios adapted to 2 age groups. We have lesson scenarios adapted to smaller children's needs, like 5, 6, and to bigger children's needs, 7 and 10. There are also, you can also have a look over there in more details. There are also word cards for children. And the third very important element is that we have also recorded trainings for teachers. So teachers get a training, they can watch it whenever they want. So it is really, the project is complex, meaning that it is very easy for teachers to implement it in the classroom. The second thing is that those materials have been made by teachers for teachers. I have actually here my colleagues, for example, Katarzyna, who was involved in developing this project. She's a teacher herself. So they are really adapted to teachers' need. They provide not only instrument, but also knowledge. We give a lot of flexibility to teachers. They can run the workshops as they want. They can run it in a row. They can divide it in blocks. They can adapt it to the subjects they're talking about in the classroom. And the third element is that those materials are really adapted to children's needs. So as you will see, the book is based on a story of Sophie and Max. They go to school and they are faced by daily situations that children are also having. So they can easily identify with the books and with the stories. So we really believe that these 3 elements makes those materials unique, and teachers and children want to use it. So I think this is my message, the best practice we would like to share. when talking to parents from partners from all around Europe, we have realized that there is a niche everywhere for financial education of children. So as Beata said, we have developed various language versions. We are currently running pilot projects in Spain, in Italy, and in Germany, because we need to evaluate those projects. We need to adapt them to national specificities and needs. And we know there are some, so we still have to do this work, but the pilot projects are being done. So again, if anybody would be interested in cooperation with us, please do not hesitate to reach out after the meeting. To conclude, I would, on behalf of the foundation, I would like to thank European Commission and OECD for the work that you are doing. The mission of our foundation is to reach with financial education all children in Poland, but now even in Europe. And I think this will be even more possible if we would have national financial education strategies and if we would have a common financial competence framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Margareta. Well, we have now a choice. We can try again with Carmine. Maybe this time the technology will not
Participants. Happy global money.
No, I'm sorry. The technology has cut us off Paris. So we turn to Maria Lucia Leitão of Central Bank of Portugal. Please.
Thank you, Deputy Belka. Thank you all for the invitation. I'm very, very honored to be here today and to have the opportunity to explain and in a detailed way what has been our strategy in Portugal to promote financial literacy. Let me start by mentioning that in Portugal, we have a national strategy since the end of 2011. We are a founding member of the OECD INFI, and immediately after we decided to start implementing financial literacy in Portugal. And the main project, the one received in 2011 our attention as the most important one, was to promote financial literacy in schools. And since then, we have been implementing financial literacy in schools, hand in hand with the Ministry of Education. I have to acknowledge it's very important, a feature of our national strategy. And we have been working through a very comprehensive, detailed strategy. But let me also mention that the national strategy in Portugal is led by the 3 financial supervisory authorities. It's an initiative of the Central Bank of Portugal, of the Portuguese Securities Market Commission, and of the Portuguese Insurance and Pension Fund Supervisory Authority. We work together within our mandate on financial consumer protection, our mandate on business conduct supervision, and we took as being a very important line of action at the level of 3 supervisory authorities to empower consumers. Obviously, we need to regulate, we need to conduct the oversight and the enforcement of the rules in place which obviously give rights to consumers, but we think that financial literacy is very, very important. And beginning of 2011, as I was saying before, we defined a comprehensive strategy. And the comprehensive strategy acknowledged from the start that we should be working step by step in a gradual approach. We need to have a strategy, but it's impossible to do everything at the same time. Then the first line of action was to incentivize teachers and schools to promote financial literacy. And in order to achieve that, we decided to launch a national competition awarding prizes to schools awarding prizes to teachers and schools, take into consideration projects being implemented during the school year. And those projects, until now, are in a number of almost 600 projects. And we have been awarding already during these last almost 11 years, 12 years, around 80 prizes. These prizes are selected by a jury who receives the different projects submitted at the beginning of the school year, and those prizes explain what the teacher intends to do during the school year. We have decided also to promote these prizes by making a public announcement in a specific date. And the public announcement of the schools and teachers awarded takes place every year at the beginning of our Financial Literacy Week, which is at the end of October. And those prizes, they take into consideration the projects being implemented according to different grades. We have obviously 4 prizes for the 4 different grades. Let me mention that we also have financial literacy in kindergarten in Portugal, from kindergarten until the end of compulsory school. And we have also special prizes when we have a project dedicated to children with disabilities. We have also we have also prizes, for those projects from schools that show continuity, because we had cases of some schools that they were competing every year. The projects are so good that we need to introduce a new level of challenge to schools, and we have a prize for continuity. And later in 2019, we have decided also to award a prize to teachers. This is a way of stimulating, as I said, and incentivizing schools to promote financial literacy. But in 2013, we also approved, and after having worked with Ministry of Education, the Free Supervised Authorities drafted a financial competence framework, which is in place since 2014. It was adopted by the Ministry of Education. Now it's being revised because we are going to introduce new topics like digitalization, sustainability, and those topics that are also being considered within the financial competence framework being drafted at the European Commission with the support of DG FISMA and Tanya. Thank you very much for your support in helping us have a more updated framework for the implementation of financial literacy in schools. Then schools, since 2014, teachers know which kind of subjects they should discuss in classroom, and they get the help of the core competence framework which is in place. After the framework, the second challenge or third challenge was to train the teachers, because we need to have the teachers being trained on these subjects. Then in 2014, year after year, step by step, as I said, in 2014, we started with support of Ministry of Education to launch training courses for teachers. These training courses are certified courses by Ministry of Education. The trainers are my colleagues from the Free Supervised Authorities. They also need to be certified by Ministry of Education, and with colleagues from Ministry of Education who have been training teachers from different regions all around the country. We did until now 13 courses. Around 450 teachers were already certified. And when I'm meaning these courses, it's not an unusual training session, it's a course. And this course gives points to the career of the teacher. Obviously, we had to stop during COVID times. We had only one course through video conference, but we prefer to conduct these courses in presence. It's completely different. The teachers attending these courses, they need also to present a work in order to get certification. It's a very complex procedure, I would say, but when the Ministry of Education opens the possibility to teachers to attend to courses that the financial public authorities are able to conduct, then we have lots of teachers trying to get a place on those courses, and those courses, they cannot have more than 20 teachers per each course according to the rules in place. And after the core competencies, after starting the courses to train the teachers, then the materials. Then we started also writing specific books. We have financial literacy workbooks. I brought some to show you if you want to see them. You have them in English, which is a very important decision because the teachers that they teach English, they can use these courses to also teach financial literacy. But as I was saying, we have financial literacy workbooks per each grade. We have 4 financial literacy workbooks. Now we are preparing specific materials to support kindergarten teachers. And we have also materials available in the website of our national strategy, the Todos Contam website, which is the label of our strategy. Materials from different schools that can be used by other schools. We share different materials around the different schools. And in last year, in 2021, 2022, sorry, we decided also to prepare some lessons plan to invite teachers that want to discuss some topics to help them going through these different topics. And we started in 2022 during Global Money Week. And we are this week also joining again the Global Money Week. We were actively promoting Global Money Week since its inception in 2014. Yes, and we have different initiatives around the country on that, because raising the attention of schools is important during specific moments around the year, like Global Money Week, our Financial Literacy Week, and other important moments. Let me mentioning how we assess the outcome of our strategy. Let me remind you that in Portugal, in 2018, the Ministry of Education, after working with us since 2011, has decided to join PISA module on financial literacy, and has decided to turn financial literacy as a mandatory subject in schools in Portugal. That's why we are working so hard with Ministry of Education to promote financial literacy in schools. And I'm very happy to give more details of our work, but I think these are the most important lines of action of our national strategy on financial literacy in schools. Obviously, we have other initiatives covering all the other different target groups, but today, let us think on schools and teachers. Thank you very much.
Okay, Michał, no, we have to give up on OECD participation. I'm sure you'll do your best. Okay, then. And I understand that Mrs. Panova is the first on the line.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'm not sure how the discussion is going to be structured, and it's very difficult for me to be very original after so many speeches, so I'll do my best. And thank you very much, Professor Marek, for inviting me to this event. Well, I heard what Professor Marek said regarding the question that he got from students, how can we make sure that we don't pay back the credit? The question that I get from my daughter, on the other hand, is, can you transfer more money to my bank account? So she knows very well what a bank account is. She knows that I need to transfer money to her bank account for her to get money, but she obviously cannot plan. She has no idea of what a budget is, what are outflows, what are inflows, and how to do it in a sustainable and reasonable way. So financial literacy, in many respects, it is not just about understanding. It's not just about knowledge. It's not just about awareness. It's about consciousness building, so to speak. So it's also about attitudes. It's how you approach things. Where do you put your emphasis in life? Do you consider it is important for you not to be in debt? Do you consider it is important for you not to owe money to anyone, not to take too much risk if in the end you cannot bear the consequences? And this is what we are trying to do in the Commission with the Financial Competence Framework. And I don't know how many of you know what a Financial Competence Framework is, because I think we assume you know, but I don't know whether you do. And in reality, what it is, it's like an ABC of various things that children need to know. Basically, what an interest rate is, what does it mean when you borrow money? What does it mean that you have to pay back, what you borrow? What does it mean that that you may take risk when you make an investment? And also what type of changes in behavior it implies, because it's, as I said, it's not just about being aware, it's also about taking the right decisions, translating your awareness in your behavior. And the problem that we were facing there, and we're still facing there, and maybe this is part of the problem that I hope the colleague sitting next to me will talk about, who represents the European schools, is that kids face a very, very busy curriculum. So my daughter is now almost 17, and she studies all the time, and she doesn't have a financial literacy class. All the subjects are important. Everything is as important. It's important to be, literate when it comes to numeracy, to sciences, to speak many languages, to write well. So all of this is important. So where does financial literacy come? Does it come at the same level as numeracy skills? Does it come at the same level as language skills? And we think it does. And I think there is a bit of lack of understanding, and I was really glad to hear all the colleagues speaking earlier today, and in particular Maria Lucia, with whom we're working very closely on the development of the competence framework, but also the Polish colleagues, that these things are increasingly being taken very seriously at national level. Because this is where we really had a bit of an issue. Now, many of you know that there is a council recommendation that sets out key competences for lifelong learning, and there are 8. Do you think there is financial literacy among them? No, there is no financial literacy. It's considered to be hidden under the numeracy skills. So that, in a way, is a sign that at least several years back, it was not considered as important as it is considered today. And increasingly, I think there is a realization that you cannot be, a successful adult unless you're also being trained during your school years how to treat money, how to protect yourself from risks, how to make a transfer, how to use financial digital apps in a straightforward way. So this is maybe one point. And another point that I wanted to make is, and it was already mentioned by Patricia earlier, that we started with the adult framework. So we first developed this competence framework for adults. I will spare you the details, but we're talking about more than 600 different competences. And this was the starting point. And we said, okay, now we have to focus on kids. shall we apply the 600 competences to kids? Is it as easy as that? And the answer was no, because half of these things, if not 2/3 of those things, were completely incomprehensible for kids. So you cannot just simply copy paste it in the school curriculum and say, okay, you have to understand this concept, because kids speak a completely different language. It's not a binary language. It's a standalone language that you need to be able to speak as a teacher, to be able to convey your message, to actually be successful in your training. And hence, what has been said about training of teachers, about having the right material, is existential. Without having teachers, without having the right type of material, there will be no result. No matter what we do at a EU national level, unless we have actually the ambassadors, I will call teachers as ambassadors of financial training. So unless we have ambassadors of financial training in schools, there will be no impact. And then the very final point, because I think we are not falling. Okay, thank you, very generous. But still, the last point that I wanted to make, and this goes back to when we actually started having these discussions and testing different financial frameworks on the ground. And we started with adult framework, but we also spoke to schools. And there was one example, Ireland, that really stuck in my head after we've spoken to the teacher. So we had an Irish teacher, and she was giving classes, I think, in primary, and she was struggling to actually explain to kids in primary, different concepts. And what she came up with as a solution, and that was a bit what Maria-Lucia also came up with in Portugal, having all this, rewards for schools and actually promoting schools' own ways of, fostering this financial literacy and coming up with classes in financial literacy. But what she did is, so she said, I didn't know how to explain it in a digestible way. So she asked all the kids in the same school to come up with brochures, basically with leaflets for younger kids to explain certain concepts to younger kids. The problem, of course, was that older kids didn't know many of these concepts either. So they had to do some digging, they have to read, they have to understand. So they did a lot of research on these things. They came up with quite an amazing material, but also being children themselves, okay, older children, but still children themselves, they were much better placed in certain cases to speak the language of younger kids and to translate all these complicated concepts. Also passing them through the prism of their own understanding when they did the digging themselves, and translated this in a training material for younger kids that was also understandable to younger kids. As a result, and that was quite amazing, not only younger kids got a more adequate, more adapted to their, let's say, background and understanding material, but also older kids got training because they had to, learn on the spot. They had to go through different websites. They had to familiarize themselves with the concept. So that was quite ingenious. And I think this is where possibly the future success of financial literacy lies. Because I think we need to be, it's not something like maths or physics or chemistry where you can put this in one setting and really teach at schools, on the basis of straightforward material. Because it talks about a skill that is very broad, very horizontal. And like majority, you might as well know what a bank account is. But if you do not know that money is, is finite, it can end. If you don't plan your money adequately, it's still not good enough. You're still not financially literate. So it requires a very broad approach. And I think using all kinds of tools and being flexible also at the school level of how you address this issue is going to be part of the success story if we really want to make progress in the EU. And with this, I stop. And apologies if I've been too long.
Thank you, Tatiana, very much, and smoothly let me take the role of Mr. Belka, and I will do my best to facilitate this discussion. Tatiana, you mentioned your daughter is 17, and you are an expert in capital market issues. So at home, she can hear, she can listen about the topics, sophisticated issues of shares, debts, etc., etc. What do children from houses whose parents are blue collars, so come from other areas where this topic is topic about financials, about savings, about where the money comes from, is not on the table every day. So you just prove that we have to start with offering programs of financial education to the youngest. And this brings me to invite to the floor Mr. Manuel Bardoy, who is dealing with these issues on daily basis. Could you share a little bit your perspective and perspective of teachers, perspective of students, having in mind that you are dealing with people coming from different countries, speaking different languages? What are the challenges, and what is your idea, your offer to bring it to the success?
Thank you very much for the invitation. As you know, I work for the European school system. The European school system is quite a unique system because it's a system that covers all Europe. And it's an intergovernmental organization. So whenever we have to make decisions at the education level, we have to seek consensus among all the member states. So as you can imagine, agreeing on a curriculum for our system is quite a complex issue. We are now at the end of a 10-year cycle where we started to review our curriculum. As you will understand, a 10-year cycle is a very long cycle to review a curriculum. Probably when we finish now, we have to start again reviewing it. One of the main events that made a big impact in the revision of our curriculum is the release of the 8 key competencies for lifelong learning. You know that everything that is released by the European Commission on education is not binding for member states, but we, being an intergovernmental organization, we like to try to follow what the Commission says. And we like to think of ourselves as the test bed for the new policies that are released by the Commission. And we like to think of ourselves as a laboratory of pedagogical innovation. So somebody said, these 80 competencies, they don't cover everything. And you are right. I was digging a bit and I saw in entrepreneurship competence, a bit of an area that deals with financial and economic literacy. I was also digging in our curriculum to see what I found, and I found something in the primary school, in mathematics. I found different currencies. I found the value of money. I found calculate exchange, etc., etc. So something we are doing, but we don't have it in a systematic way, and that is why we will welcome very much that a framework is released, because that way, what we will try is to embed it into our curriculum. We have done it with the 8 key competencies, and we have done it with frameworks that have come later, like the Green Comp. I would like to say one thing, for the people that are releasing the framework, that at least is very important for us. It's not only knowledge, it's not only skills, it's also attitudes, values. Because what do we do with money so that it is used, in a proper way? And this for us and for the education of young people, I think it's very important not to forget this value angle. Just to finish my intervention, we will be very, very happy to cooperate. I actually admire the Portuguese colleagues. I think we will have to look into what they have done, and also the Polish, because probably they are much more advanced than we are at the moment, because they have treated this in a systematic way. But as you know, the European school system has a very complex decision-making process where we have to seek the consensus, but it's always good to start from good practice that is being implemented in some countries, and also from the recommendations of international organizations like OECD, and of course, the European Commission that we work with, and actually is one of the stakeholders of the European School. So we are at your service, as I said, to serve as a test bed, and also, to try to put in practice any new experiments to innovate and to make our system better. And hopefully we think that whenever we test something and we put it in practice, later we can also have a certain impact on the national systems. For example, not in Portugal, because it's already quite advanced, but probably in other national systems. So thanks very much for this invitation.
Thank you, Manuel. And I'm happy hearing that it's good to follow good practice, and that should go to the press release that you would like to use the Portuguese and Polish experiments, as you said, but actually these programs have been already at the stage of not only implemented, but evaluated. So it is worth watching that. Now, Wim Mies, CEO of the Federal European Banking Federation. And first, I would like to start with a question whether we are just facing the next banking crisis, but I will avoid this question. Instead of that, let me ask you whether if we invested more in younger generation, this is a rhetoric question, so easy to answer. If we invested more in education, financial education in younger generation, would we have less problems, fewer problems with management of banks, or also investors in a banking sector that maybe would allow us to avoid crisis? Or set of crises. In other words, do we need investments? Do we need financial education in primary schools?
Whoa, you give me a chance to go really deep. Now, to just talk about the crisis, I must say I have a high level of trust in the European institutions and the way they reacted. Mrs. Lagarde was here in this house yesterday, and listening to her, but also to the other supervisors, I think that after the crisis in 2008, many things were put in place, and the banking union was a great achievement and was important. Having said that, do you need more financial education? The answer is yes, because families at individual level always get in trouble, and finance is so important in our lives. That also answers the question what I am doing here, why banks should be involved in financial education. And that means it's because I have a very simple view on banks. Banks only have one reason in life, that's to support society and the economy in what they do. And as part of that society, they have the duty to develop financial education programs. That doesn't mean to change consumer protection, because you need high levels of consumer protection. But as I always call the consumer protection the fences in the prairie, then the financial education is essential for families, for people who use financial service, to ask the right questions. Should banks be at the steering wheel or at the forefront? No, they should support schools, teachers, academia, central banks, ministries of finance. And I am myself from a teacher's family, so I also know that one never sits on the seat of the teacher and when the curriculum is quite overfilled. So by reaching out and developing tools that we can offer to teachers when they see fit, I think we can add a lot of work, and also by doing financial research. So if you have that, I must say I've been extremely happy, because I've been involved in financial education since 2007, and I'm one of the founders of the Dutch Wijzer in Geldzaken or MoneyWise platform and the Bank in the Classroom, which developed these tools in the Netherlands. And I was so inspired about public-private cooperation between, led by the Ministry of Finance, but with the Dutch Central Bank, with the insurance, with the pension sector, but also with the Ministry of Education, with the consumer organizations. I was so inspired that when I got this job, I took the Dutch Money Week and I tried to develop the European Money Week, in which we are now, because obviously I closely coordinated with the Global Money Week. So making the case of where banks fit and the importance, it is clear also that you look at the leaders. And I must say the OECD, but also individual initiatives like yours have done so much, but more needs to be done. If you go to the European Money Week, what is it? What do you want to do at the European level? And when I started this job, the European Bank Federation represents 32 banking federations in 32 countries. And I noted all this expertise and enthusiasm, the whole ecosystem of people. So we thought, can we learn from each other? Can we exchange best practices? Can we organize things at the European level that helps? And this works. So since 2015, we started that, and we've seen that this helped. And what is more important, it's even reached beyond the borders of the European Union. Because through associate membership with, for instance, countries like North Macedonia, Albania, Serbia, and others, we were able to help not only with best practices, but also with support in developing strategies there. And by that, we've learned a lot more. So European Money Week is one, but we wanted to make it tangible. And again, in the ecosystem, you meet into other things. You meet the finance museums that are creative. So last year, we developed an installation, a lightning bolt, because together with financial education come financial skills. As was said before, with money becoming virtual, it becomes more important that you actually not only have financial education, but also have the basic digital skills to manage your money. So we developed a lightning bolt, which is actually a quiz that gives you, in 12 questions, gives you a view on how much you know about your own finance. And we put it on the street. And by the way, coming back to your earlier question, I also let several people of the European Commission play the quiz. And that's why I'm absolutely sure that the European Commission knows their stuff on this. But having said that, we put this in the street and we used it for passers-by to test their financial education in a game, in a gaming way. Now, again, that shows one of these things, and we are having this installation now travel throughout financial education museums, again, helping children, creating digital skills, but also helping the ecosystem grow bigger, like an oil spill, which I very much believe. This is the one oil spill that I really like. Then the last thing is we also organize the European Money Quiz, and that has almost become a brand by its own, because it's played by 30 countries, by between 50 and 100,000 kids yearly, and has been played a million times. And what did we do? We wanted to create a European competition. And so for that, you need an educational platform. And we found Kahoot as the educational platform. And we developed 650 questions that were tested by academia, what were within the OECD norms, that can be used in 11 languages for the national competitions. And on 15th and 16th of May, we have the European finals, which is interesting because you have 60 kids with their teachers from all over Europe. So we make this a fun day. Not only do they play, but also we take them to the European Parliament, we take them to the European Commission, and again, helping this oil spill spread. And what you see is the amount of energy that you get. And we also have them, for instance, coming back to the Capital Markets Union, doing the opening bell of the Belgium Euronext Stock Exchange. Again, raising awareness, creating energy, and helping with tools. And this is what we all were doing. One last thing that I want to remark. I'm extremely proud and also touched that this year, for the first time, the European Money Quiz will also be played by the schools of Ukraine, who had tremendous difficulty, of course, in organizing this. But again, it shows The ecosystem needs to be bigger. It is no doubt that it is needed, but the amount of creativity and knowledge that I found in my years in financial education is an inspiration.
Thank you so much, and especially for this last comment. And let me share that our ambition, the ambition of the foundation, is also to introduce these both programs to Ukraine and to Ukrainian schools.
You realize that Poland was the first winner of the European Money Quiz, so you're doing something right there.
We hope so. One thing I really like what you mentioned, that within banking federation, banks can learn from each other. And this is something, I mean, simple by hearing, but let me also share that in Poland, there are top banks who have been engaged in also using these programs under their CSR programs. And so on their regional territories, they just work together with chosen schools. So this is also a good practice to be copied. Now let me move to Bianca Isenku, who is policy analyst, financial education, consumer finance, insurance, pension, Directorate for Financial and Enterprise Affairs from OECD. Not only you have been observing, analyzing the levels of education in other countries, but you also support different programs, as it was already mentioned, among others, by Natalie Berger. Could you share a little bit of your observations, but also how you see the level, generally speaking, the level of financial education in younger generation? And maybe you could also share who is on the top of this list. So that could be called role models, role model countries. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, I have to say, Tanya mentioned that it's very hard to speak after so many great speakers. What should I say now that I'm the last one in line? No, but first of all,
last but not least.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to be here with everyone, with a lot of old and new friends. Actually, DG FISMA, DG Reform, well, European Parliament, which is kindly hosting us, and our new friends from Czepczynski Family Foundation. And of course, I do not forget Banco de Portugal, which is always a pleasure to see and be in the same room with. And before I answer your question, because we are in the Global Money Week, I want to say happy Global Money Week to everyone. And I'm wondering, I actually don't know who you are, but I want to ask you if you know what Global Money Week is. No, okay. So we talk about the Global Money Week, but nobody knows what it is. I mean, some of us don't. So it's an awareness campaign that it was initiated 11 years ago. And the idea of this campaign is to raise awareness about how important financial education is for children and young people. And this is why we're talking about this right now. And this is why we haven't stopped talking about this because, you know, there's so many people still that don't know, or maybe they're not aware, or they're not accustomed to associate children and financial education. And I want to tell you that, well, on Monday we launched the campaign. We had the global launch. It was very exciting. We had questions from young people from all continents asked to high-level representatives from different countries. And as we speak, we know that this week there are 117 countries all around the world that are celebrating Global Money Week. What does this mean? I mean, I counted before, we were 31 in the room. So this means that multiply this by 3.5 times the amount of people that we are here. And that's the number of countries that right now are doing Global Money Week. I mean, to me, I've been working on financial education since 2011, and it's always so humbling to think about this and to think that in this context where we are of fragmentation, political instability, and really difficult situations sometimes, and we feel like we are losing hope, I feel that it is so amazing that financial education is something that brings us, I get goosebumps, by the way, when I talk about this, but it brings us all together under one common goal, right? And under something which is noble, and that is to empower young people to really make the best of our future and of our economies, of our countries, of our planet, I dare to say, because let's not forget that we are in an emergency right now, and we should never stop talking about it. And so to me, this is really exciting. And I mean, Wim here also already mentioned, but just to let you know that it is true. We have seen that National Bank of Ukraine has shown an incredible resilience, and they are participating in Global Money Week this year as well. And not only, but also Yemen, which, as you know, is a country that is torn by war for so many years. They are, again, have started to do Global Money Week this year. So the Central Bank of Yemen is leading this effort. So I think this is really amazing. I wanted to show you a video, but let's forget about that, because I think the technology is not working with us. And I mean, again, it's hard to add to what was said before, but let me just say that in addition to what the colleagues from the European Commission mentioned of why it is important to have financial education for children, young people, and they mentioned digitalization, the new products that are coming on the market, you know, and how difficult it is and how challenging it is for young people to make this, you know, financial transaction, this more complex financial system. I also maybe want to mention two additional reasons why this is important. First of all, because we know that young people, I mean, there's quite some young people here in the room, and I'm sorry to say, but more young people and younger people will face more difficulties in the future. They will bear more financial risks just because, you know, we will have increased life expectancy. There will be risk related to climate change. There will be maybe the pension system will change. People will have to take that into consideration. Maybe, you know, the employment contracts are becoming more unstable. Think just about the gig economy. Think about the freelancers, which are a lot of them are young people. So these are obviously things that make so that there are more financial risks for young people in the future. And then the second thing that I want to mention, so that would be a third reason for me why this financial literacy is so important for young people, is that there is income and wealth inequality that is growing all around the world, in Europe and all continents actually, and this is also very important for financial literacy. And I think before it was mentioned by Ms. Beata that you know, for example, a family like Tanya's, where parents are knowledgeable about issues related to financial education is fortunate, you know, your children are fortunate, right? But not all parents are equipped with this knowledge to teach their children about financial matters. And we know from our studies, and I'm coming here to your question of the PISA, which is the financial literacy assessment, that socioeconomic disadvantaged students are actually performing lower. They have lower financial literacy levels than socioeconomic advantaged students. So this is something that is clear to us, and this is why it is important that financial education is integrated in the school curriculum from early ages, and this is very important actually. And so you asked me what countries are doing well and what countries you know can improve more. And of course, for the OECD, the way we look at this, or the way we measure this, is through the PISA financial literacy assessment. Unfortunately, the data that we have currently is a little bit old. It's from 2018, but the new PISA financial literacy assessment will be released next year. So we will have fresh data. But what I can tell you from, well, the old data is that we have high performers which have above OECD average levels of financial literacy, and these are Estonia, Poland actually is among the high performers, and I'm only talking here about European countries, Finland, Latvia, Portugal. So you are very lucky today that you have high performer countries in the room, and Lithuania. So these countries perform in terms of financial literacy above the OECD levels. But I have to also mention that the fact that, you know, we have this aggregated levels of financial literacy for young people in a way, it hides something, which is disparities within the countries. And we've seen actually quite a number of differences. I'm not going to go into details of all these differences, but one important difference is the gender. There's a gender gap in financial literacy, and this gender gap in financial literacy is starting from a very young age. And this is very sad for us, especially women that work in financial education, financial areas more generally, because, you know, it's kind of, oops.
The friends of the echo are back.
We can make it like a party.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Okay.
it started when you started talking about gender gap.
Exactly, you see. Yes. Can I continue? No. Yes, yes, yes.
I want to say
It is important that we provide financial education to all children and young people. But most important to me is that we also keep in mind that there are some groups of children and young people which are particularly disadvantaged and they need more support compared to others. And that we also keep in mind that some parents are not equipped with financial skills to educate their children. And this is why having financial education in schools and supporting teachers to deliver this financial education in a way that is engaging and that it affects the behavior of young people is super, super important. So,
thank you so much. And what I really liked what you said, that financial education is integrated into other areas, because this is about demography. This is about, we mentioned pension programs. So how shall we prepare the generation to understand that you have to start saving on the capital market, for example, through pension funds early enough just to have money when you retire. So this is integrated. So microphone works. We will have few minutes for questions because I really would like invite you to ask questions, but shall we start? Shall we give the last chance to see the speech?
Dzień dobry. Distinguished guests, dear panelists, dear participants, happy Global Money Week. The 2023 edition of the Global Money Week, with the theme of Plan Your Money, Plant Your Future, kicked off on Monday in over 100 countries around the world. I'm delighted that this event, organized as part of the Global Money Week, is being held at the European Parliament. A special thank you to the Czepczynski Family Foundation for the initiative and to Marek Belka for his support on the very important topic of financial education for children and young people. It's often said, but no less true, that young people are our future. And we have a responsibility to help them prepare for the future, including for their financial well-being. Recognizing this priority, the OECD International Network on Financial Education, INFE, has been working with countries for many years to develop policy guidance and provided support for developing and implementing policies and programs for young people's financial literacy. The OECD recommendation on financial literacy, the international standard in this area, acknowledges the importance of developing financial literacy from the earliest possible age. It makes clear that young people should be a key target group for financial education programs within national strategies for financial literacy. I want to acknowledge here the strong partnership we have with the European Commission on financial education. In January last year, we launched a joint EU-OECD financial competence frameworks for all schools. We are now looking forward to launching a similar framework for children and youth in October this year. Thanks to support provided by DG Reform, the OECD is also working closely with several member states to support the development and implementation of national financial literacy strategies in the European Union. In April, we will be launching the National Strategy on Financial Education of Poland, and we look forward to working with other member states on the same topic. Turning to the focus of this year's Global Money Week, it's never too early to start talking with children about money. Young people are increasingly exposed to financial products, including digital ones, from early ages. The PISA Financial Literacy Assessment showed that while just over half of the 15-year-old students across participating OECD countries have a bank account, and almost 40% have made a payment with a mobile phone, but half of the last one don't understand even the value of a simple budget. In fact, most young people are not equipped with essential financial skills, and around 1 in 6 students globally lacks basic financial literacy proficiency. At the same time, the majority of 15-year-old students say they enjoy talking about money. Unfortunately, not all parents or guardians have the necessary skills for this conversation. And perhaps, unsurprisingly, PISA showed that socioeconomically disadvantaged students perform worse in financial literacy than advantaged students. This highlights the importance of making sure that all children and young people have access to opportunities to develop their financial skills, including through schools. Introducing financial education in the school curriculum can improve the quality, effectiveness, and fairness of financial education, while offering young people the basic skills that in some cases they cannot learn from families or through personal experience. It is a challenging task, given overloaded curricula and competing priorities. Introducing financial education in the school curricula can, though, bring important and long-term rewards. The complexity of our financial systems and the complexity of future challenges make financial education an essential skill for future generations to build resilience and maintain financial well-being in a fast-changing world. We know that young people want to make positive contributions towards a sustainable future. As policymakers, we have the duty to support them. Discussing sustainable finance is one way to prompt young people to be forward-looking and to take a broad view of the environment and society as they make financial decisions. This year's Global Money Week theme of Plan Your Money, Plant Your Future seeks to raise awareness of the consequences of individual financial behavior, not only for one's own financial future, but also collectively for the environment and society. To conclude, I want to emphasize that basic financial literacy can make a crucial difference in the opportunities and prospects of young people. It's a keystone for lifelong financial resilience and well-being. However, we know that challenges remain and that we need to step up our efforts to make a difference in young people's lives. The OECD remains committed to advancing financial literacy for all and working with European institutions and member states to make this a reality. I wish you productive discussions today.
Well, thank you. Finally. Actually, I should say, I could even say that it was a brilliant summary of our discussion and presentations. But before we finish, I know that we are allowed to stay here for another 5-7 minutes. So maybe we could take 1, 2, 3 questions from our dear guests. Please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm here on behalf of the ATE. My question's open to all the panelists. I'm curious as to what metrics you would plan on determining progress in European students' financial literacy were there to be a curriculum implemented and practiced for a couple years.
Who would like to answer? It's not an easy question, but feel free. Panelists,
So if I understood correctly, your question, you are asking if financial education would be integrated in the school curriculum, how would you see if this is successful or not, right? Well, I mean, I'm from the OECD, so I'll say, well, we will measure financial literacy through the PISA financial literacy assessment, and we will see if there's been an improvement there or not. But at the same time, you need to keep in mind that, a couple of years is not going to make a huge difference, and you're not going to see behavior changes in a couple of years in students' behaviors. A lot of times we see increases in knowledge, awareness of specific products or specific concepts, but behavior changes take a long time. So ideally, you would want to measure this regularly at regular intervals to see if, if changes have happened and how they've affected the behavior of young people. Then when it comes to financial education programs themselves, they can be evaluated through various means. We have, the gold standard in evaluation, which are randomized control trials, but these are very difficult to implement because they're extremely expensive and, very hard to put in place. But there are ways to evaluate financial education programs, and then you can directly actually draw the line, let's say, between the implementation of a financial education program and its impact, mostly on the knowledge of students. So I would say that, I think before one of the colleagues from DG FISMA announced that there will be some measurement at the European level of financial literacy. So I'm curious to of course, not of young people, but probably of adults, but it will be really interesting to actually think if this can also be somehow expanded to young people. So
Tatiana, maybe you would like to.
Sure, happy to do it. I was going to say, because my immediate reaction was indeed to think about PISA, but if it is formally introduced in the curriculum, and again speaking under the control of the representative of the European schools and other schools, the typical measurement of the knowledge and awareness is an exam, right, at school. So this is how schools typically measure the level of knowledge. Now, the problem, of course, with this is that, and I think you did mention this, it's not as much about skills and awareness as it is about attitudes. You actually have to test a change in behavior, and that is much more difficult to do through a standard examination technique that schools typically use. So as Bianca was saying, the ideal way of testing this would be a change in behavior that would manifest itself in adults after the graduation, and when these people actually, when young people join the adult community and actually can act on many of those skills and attitudes, because a lot of what and you will see it when we publish the framework in October, maybe even slightly before that to be seen, a lot of it's very difficult to test when you're still young, because you don't typically invest. Yes, you hear about crypto assets. How many kids usually invest in crypto assets? Some do, yes, but how often do you go to a financial advisor before you take up an investment? These things are basically there to prepare you for the adulthood, for the full-fledged life as a conscious and adult, and that will be, of course, then translated in your behavior as an adult. On the Eurobarometer, so what we are trying to do, and that's a bit the downside of what the OECD currently had, but there's more work, and Bianca can say much more on that, is that previous surveys that OECD did covered only very few member states, so European member states. And the previous one covered 8. Now the idea is to, I think, extend it to 20 or so. What we're trying to do in the EU now with this Eurobarometer, which is a bit of a novelty, because what Eurobarometer survey does usually tests feeling, sentiment. Usually you would hear, that Eurobarometer is used to test people's attitude to, broad brush policies, or, what people think about the war, or things like that. So it's about sentiment. Here we're using it in a slightly different manner, saying, okay, we are testing actually your level of understanding of financial literacy, which is fairly innovative. But in the absence of other tools, this is what we are doing. So the idea is to use the Eurobarometer survey, which is a survey that allows you to, through different means, but we're doing it digitally, to access a sample of citizens in each member state. So either 1,000 in a bigger member state, maybe 500 in a smaller member state, and to ask them all the same questions. And these questions go again across a very wide universe of financial literacy, starting from interest rate, inflation, knowledge of, understanding of risk, diversification, different types of instruments, digital skills, and things like that. So not many questions. Let's say we're talking about 12, 13 questions, but asked to everyone in the same way. And of course, all the demographical questions, to be able to see, okay, are we talking about a woman answering this question, or a man, or, somebody working in a rural area or in the urban area, to be able then to interpret those results. On the basis of this, we hope to be able to come up with some metric. This is for adults, even though Eurobarometer is open to actually citizens from the age of 15 and above. So that's maybe another element to keep in mind. I think I'm taking too much time, so I stop here.
Gentlemen, maybe Manuel first and then Wim.
Thank you very much. Before I was explaining that financial education is not systematically introduced in the curriculum of the European schools, but we have also some dedicated subjects which are called economy, and this happen from the age of 14 until 18. And there we do have a very specific curriculum, and we have a very detailed syllabi, and then we have also matrices that refer to examinations, as it was mentioned before, and we have different attainment descriptors, so we can check the level at which the competencies have been attained by the different pupils. So, in fact, examinations is a classic way of measuring, but also the European schools has participated very recently in PISA for schools, and I have to say that, not probably the specific module, but we have received quite good results, even though some of our pupils were answering their tests in their second language and not the first language. So we are quite proud of that. And we hope that in the future we will have also a systematic way of measuring the competences in financial education of our pupils. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You asked the key question: how do you measure? Thank you for asking that question, because it's indeed the first instinct was to go to PISA. That would be the one. Second, exams. Third, I find creative use of Eurobarometer very interesting. But it is the question that we all ask ourselves. Also, me in trying to set up the programs, the people that I work for will always say, "How can you measure success? How do you know that you made a change?" And I yesterday had a long discussion with Professor Christoph de Witte of the University of Leuven, because that's the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is academic research to measure effect. And he is a professor in behavioral sciences, and he does research exactly to how behavior has changed as part of financial education. And he, I must say, I'm very interested in his research papers, because even though they may not give you the final result of your effect, it will guide you towards the things that you have to improve to make sure that you have maximum effect. And the other person I would like to mention in this is Professor Anna Maria Lusardi of GFLAG in Washington, who has done a lot of research. And for instance, between the gender gap and the uptake between boys and girls, but also the risk appetite between boys and girls. So in adding to what the other speakers have said, I think that academic research into the general effect on society through behavioral science, economic science is very important.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that we cannot take any further questions. Margareta?
I'm afraid we need to finish because there is another meeting starting and they have to test the connection. But what we can do also, we can talk a bit like, you know, in the corridors, as we say, you know, exchange feedback, ask questions. You have names of all the panelists also in the agenda, so we can also find the contact details. I'm really sorry, but we started a bit later and we had some technical issues.
So I hope this is a very fair explanation. Sorry for that. But first of all, thank you so much for your presence here. Thank you, panelists, experts, dear guests, dear friends. And let's continue. And let's start with our efforts to invest in young generation through education. Thank you so much.